When we think about the forces that built America, we often imagine determined pioneers, powerful locomotives, or the grand visions of founding fathers. We rarely picture a rodent, yet an animal with buck teeth, a flat tail, and an unyielding work ethic played a foundational role in shaping the nation's landscape and its history. This creature is the North American beaver, Castor canadensis. Long before European settlers arrived, this industrious animal was hard at work, transforming streams and valleys, creating fertile lands and engineering ecosystems. The story of America is inextricably linked to this giant pond rat, a humble but mighty architect whose influence can still be seen from coast to coast, if you know where to look. The beaver didn't just live in America, in many ways it built the America that humans would later claim. The very map of the continent was drawn in part by the pursuit of this animal. Its luxurious fur drove a global trade that fueled exploration, sparked conflicts, and established the first economic networks across the vast wilderness. The desire for beaver pelts sent trappers and traders deep into uncharted territories, following rivers and streams that were themselves shaped and maintained by beaver colonies. These early adventurers were not just hunting an animal, they were following a path laid by nature's own engineer. The towns and cities that later sprang up often began as trading posts, strategically placed in the heart of beaver country. The wealth generated by the fur trade helped finance the growth of a young nation, proving that this unassuming creature was a powerful economic engine long before the Industrial Revolution. Before the era of human ambition, the beaver was already a master of landscape design. It was the original terraformer, turning small, fast-flowing streams into complex series of ponds, wetlands, and lush meadows. These beaver-created habitats acted like giant sponges, holding water on the land, recharging groundwater, and making the entire ecosystem more resilient to drought and fire. The changes they made were so profound that early European explorers often mistook these engineered landscapes for the work of a divine creator, not realizing they were witnessing the handiwork of a rodent. They marveled at the rich, loamy soil and the abundance of life, little knowing that they owed their good fortune to generations of beavers tirelessly building, damming, and shaping the world around them. The legacy of the beaver is a story of immense creation, devastating loss, and now, a hopeful recovery. Understanding the beaver's role forces us to reconsider our own history and our relationship with the natural world. It shows us that the health of our land and water is deeply connected to the well-being of its wild inhabitants. The tale of this remarkable animal is more than just a chapter in a natural history book. It is a fundamental part of the American story. It teaches us about the surprising ways that nature works and reminds us that sometimes, the most important builders are not the ones who hold the blueprints, but the ones who simply follow their instincts, one stick and one stone at a time. The beaver is, without a doubt, America's most important and most overlooked founding father. The North American beaver is a truly unique animal, perfectly adapted for its role as a master builder. It is the largest rodent in North America, often weighing between 30 and 60 pounds, though some can grow even larger. Its body is built for a life spent in and around water. Powerful webbed hind feet act as flippers, propelling it through ponds and streams with surprising speed and grace. Its most famous feature, a large, flat, scaly tail, serves multiple purposes. It acts as a rudder for steering in the water, a prop for support when the beaver is on land cutting down trees, and a tool for slapping the water's surface as a loud warning signal to alert other beavers of danger. Its very design speaks to a life of diligent aquatic engineering. A beaver's most essential tools are its teeth. It possesses 4 large orange incisors that are constantly growing. This continuous growth is necessary because the teeth are constantly being worn down by the beaver's main activity, gnawing on wood. The front surface of these teeth is coated in hard, iron-rich enamel, which is what gives them their distinctive orange color. The back surface is made of softer dentin. This combination means that as the beaver chews, the softer back wears away faster than the hard front, creating a perpetually sharp, chisel-like edge perfect for felling trees and shaping logs. With these powerful tools, a beaver can fell a small tree with a 5-inch diameter in just a few minutes, turning a forest into a construction site. The primary goal of all this hard work is to create a safe, stable home. Beavers build dams across streams and small rivers to create deep, still ponds. These dams are remarkable structures built from a carefully woven matrix of sticks, logs, mud, and rocks. The beaver starts by laying down a foundation of larger logs and then weaves smaller branches and sticks into the structure. It then plasters the upstream side with mud and wet vegetation, creating a nearly waterproof seal. The resulting pond provides protection from predators like wolves, bears, and coyotes. Within this safe haven, the beaver constructs its lodge, a dome-shaped shelter made of the same materials as the dam, with underwater entrances that keep its family safe from harm. Life for a beaver family, known as a colony, revolves around maintaining their dam and lodge. They are social animals, typically consisting of a mated pair, their young kits, and often the yearlings from the previous litter. Everyone has a job to do. The adults are the primary builders and defenders of the territory, while the younger beavers learn the necessary skills by observing and helping. They work mostly at night, felling trees, dragging branches to the dam, and reinforcing their structures. In the autumn, they work tirelessly to build a large underwater cache of edible branches called a food pile, which will serve as their food supply throughout the long winter months when the pond is frozen over, ensuring the colony's survival until spring. A beaver dam is much more than just a barrier across a stream. It is the cornerstone of a vibrant and complex ecosystem. When a beaver builds a dam, it fundamentally changes the flow of water. A fast, narrow stream is transformed into a wide, slow-moving pond. This simple act has profound consequences for the entire landscape. The slowed water spreads out, creating vast wetlands and marshes where there was once dry land. This water is no longer rushing downstream. Instead, it is stored on the landscape, seeping deep into the ground. This process recharges the groundwater table, keeping nearby soils moist and healthy. In essence, the beaver creates a natural reservoir, a life-giving source of water for the entire surrounding area. The new world created by the beaver pond quickly becomes a magnet for all kinds of life. The deep, still water is an ideal habitat for many species of fish, which thrive in the cooler temperatures and abundant food sources. Amphibians like frogs, toads, and salamanders find the pond's shallow edges perfect for laying their eggs. The calm water also attracts numerous waterfowl, such as ducks and geese, who use the ponds for nesting, feeding, and resting during migration. The increased insect life that flourishes in the wetland environment provides a rich food source for these birds, as well as for bats and other insect-eating creatures. A single beaver pond can dramatically increase the biodiversity of an area, turning a simple stream into a bustling hub of activity. The beaver's influence extends far beyond the water's edge. The trees that beavers cut down do not go to waste. When a large tree is felled, it opens up the forest canopy, allowing sunlight to reach the forest floor. This new light encourages the growth of a wide variety of smaller plants, shrubs, and grasses. This undergrowth provides food and shelter for many land animals. Deer and moose come to browse on the tender new shoots. Songbirds nest in the dense shrubs, and small mammals like rabbits and mice find refuge from predators. The dead wood left behind by beavers also becomes a valuable resource, providing homes for insects, fungi, and woodpeckers. The beaver acts as a keystone species, an organism whose presence creates the conditions for countless other species to thrive. Over time, the beaver's work creates what are known as beaver meadows. A beaver colony will stay in one place for several years, continually building up their dam. Silt, sediment, and organic material get trapped behind the dam, slowly filling the pond. Eventually, the beavers may move on to a new location, and the old dam will naturally break down. The water drains away, leaving behind a wide, flat valley filled with incredibly rich, fertile soil. These meadows, created by centuries of beaver activity, are incredibly productive landscapes. They support lush grasses and wildflowers, which in turn support large populations of grazing animals and pollinators. The beaver doesn't just build a pond, it engages in a long-term process of land creation that enriches the entire ecosystem for generations. Long before the arrival of European settlers, Native American communities understood and benefited from the work of beavers. They recognized the beaver not just as a source of food and fur, but as a creator of abundance. The wetlands and ponds crafted by beavers were, natural gardens, providing a rich and reliable source of resources. Native peoples harvested the fish, turtles, and waterfowl that thrived in beaver ponds. They also gathered the edible and medicinal plants that grew in the moist, fertile soils along the water's edge, such as cattails and sweet flag. For many tribes, beaver-rich territories were considered valuable and were managed sustainably to ensure that this natural bounty would continue for future generations. When the first European settlers began to move inland from the coastal colonies, they faced the daunting task of clearing dense ancient forests to create farmland. This was back-breaking work that required immense effort. However, those who stumbled upon the landscapes shaped by beavers found their work made significantly easier. They discovered pre-cleared, open valleys with deep, rich and rock-free soil. These were the beaver meadows, lands that had been prepared for agriculture by generations of nature's engineers. The settlers did not have to fell massive trees or remove countless stones. They could simply plow the soft, loamy earth and plant their crops, giving them a critical head start in establishing their new homes and farms in the wilderness. The benefits provided by beavers went beyond just pre-cleared land. The constant presence of water in beaver-managed landscapes was a tremendous asset for early farmers. The series of ponds and wetlands maintained a high water table, which meant that crops grown in nearby fields were less susceptible to periods of drought. The streams flowing out of beaver complexes were more reliable, providing a steady source of water for livestock and for powering small grist mills and sawmills, which were essential for community development. The settlers often called these reliable streams beaver brooks, in recognition of the animal responsible for their dependable flow. The beaver's engineering provided a stable and resilient foundation upon which early American agriculture could be built. In a very real sense, the beaver was the first American farmer, tilling the soil and managing the water long before humans arrived with plows and shovels. Many of the most productive agricultural valleys in the eastern United States, from New England down through the Appalachian Mountains, were originally beaver meadow complexes. The settlers were, in effect, inheriting a landscape that had been carefully cultivated for centuries. While they may not have fully understood the ecological processes at play, they certainly recognized the value of these fertile, well-watered lands. The beavers' silent, tireless labor gave these early communities a crucial advantage, helping them to survive and ultimately prosper in a challenging new world. While beavers were shaping the physical landscape of America, their fur was shaping its economic and political destiny. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Europe developed an insatiable demand for beaver pelts. This was driven almost entirely by fashion. Felt hats made from beaver fur were honestly the ultimate status symbol for European gentlemen. Beaver felt was superior to all other materials because it was incredibly durable, naturally waterproof, and could be molded into the wide-brimmed, stylish hats that were popular at the time. The secret was the beaver's underfur, a dense layer of soft, barbed hairs that could be tightly matted together to create a high-quality, long-lasting felt. This demand turned the North American beaver into a source of immense wealth, a soft gold that would drive an entire era of history. This fur rush launched a period of intense exploration and competition. European powers, including France, England, and the Netherlands, vied for control of the lucrative trade. They established vast trading networks that stretched deep into the heart of the continent. French voyageurs, British Hudson's Bay Company traders, and American mountain men pushed further and further into the wilderness, their primary goal being the acquisition of beaver pelts. They followed the river systems, which were the highways of the fur trade, and also the natural habitat of their quarry. The quest for beaver pelts was the chief motivation for the mapping and exploration of much of interior North America, from the Great Lakes to the Rocky Mountains and beyond. The fur trade created a complex and often fraught relationship between European traders and Native American tribes. For centuries, native peoples had hunted beavers sustainably for their own needs. With the arrival of Europeans, beavers were transformed into a commodity for a global market. Many tribes became essential partners in the trade, trapping beavers and trading the pelts for European goods such as metal tools, firearms, blankets, and beads. This trade brought new technologies and materials into native communities, but it also created new dependencies and sparked intense rivalries between tribes as they competed for control of the best trapping grounds. The beaver became a central figure in the cultural and economic interactions that defined this period of contact. The economic importance of the beaver cannot be overstated. The fur trade was the first major commercial enterprise in North America, and the foundation of the colonial economy for more than 200 years. Fortunes were made, and powerful companies like the Hudson's Bay Company and the American Fur Company were built on the backs of beavers. The profits from the fur trade financed the establishment of settlements, forts, and trading posts, many of which grew into major cities like New York, Albany, and St. Louis. The beaver was so central to the economy that its image was even used on early currency and coats of arms. For a long time, the economic health of the continent was directly tied to the population of this one remarkable rodent. The relentless pressure of the fur trade had a devastating impact on beaver populations. For over 2 centuries, beavers were trapped with ruthless efficiency across the continent. As one area was trapped out, the trappers simply moved on to the next, pushing ever westward. By the late 19th century, the North American beaver, which had once numbered in the hundreds of millions, was on the brink of extinction. In many parts of the eastern United States, the animal had vanished completely. This massive loss was not just a tragedy for the species, it was a catastrophe for the landscapes that had depended on them. The intricate, water-rich worlds that beavers had built began to fall apart. Without beavers to maintain them, millions of dams across the continent crumbled and washed away. The ponds they had created drained, and the vast wetlands dried up. The intricate sponge-like systems that had stored water and moderated stream flows were gone. As a result, streams that had once been stable and slow-moving became faster and more erratic. They began to cut deeper into the landscape, a process known as stream incision. This lowered the water table, making the surrounding land drier and more prone to drought. The lush meadows turned into dry floodplains, and the rich biodiversity that had flourished in the beaver ponds disappeared. The loss of the beaver led to a widespread simplification and degradation of North America's river valleys. Fortunately, the story did not end there. In the early 20th century, conservationists began to recognize the immense ecological damage that had been done. Efforts were made to protect the few remaining beaver populations, and reintroduction programs were started. Beavers were live-trapped in areas where they still existed, and relocated to regions where they had been wiped out. These programs were, honestly, remarkably successful. As a resilient and adaptable species, the beavers quickly got back to work. They began building dams, creating ponds, and restoring the broken water cycles. The return of the beaver marked the beginning of a slow but steady healing process for many of North America's damaged landscapes. Today, the beaver is making a remarkable comeback, and we are rediscovering its importance as a key partner in environmental restoration. In an era of increasing climate change, with more frequent droughts and floods, the work of beavers is more valuable than ever. Their dams store precious water, making ecosystems more resilient to drought. They slow down floodwaters, reducing erosion and property damage downstream. They create fire breaks by keeping large areas of the landscape wet and green. We are learning to work with beavers, using them as natural, low-cost allies to restore streams, improve water quality, and enhance wildlife habitat. The story of the beaver teaches us a powerful lesson, that by restoring a single keystone species, we can begin to heal an entire landscape, reminding us of the profound and enduring connection between people, animals, and the land we all share.